When a man hurts you, the natural instinct is to react, to demand answers, to express your pain, to show him exactly how much he has affected you. But what if I told you that the most powerful response is no response at all? Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. When you withdraw your energy, when you remove your presence, you force him into a space he never expected, a space of uncertainty. Because men expect a reaction. They expect anger, tears, or pleading. They expect you to try to make sense of what happened. But when you do the opposite, when you give him nothing, he's left alone with his own actions, and that's when the confusion begins. You see, silence is powerful because it disrupts his expectations. When someone hurts you, they assume they still have emotional control over you. But when you go silent, you show them that they don't. And that realization, it's unsettling. It forces him to start questioning, did I misjudge her? Did she not care as much as I thought? Is she already moving on? The mind cannot stand unanswered questions. And your silence becomes the loudest statement you could ever make. Think about it. When was the last time you ignored a text from someone and they started double texting, calling, or suddenly showing up in your notifications? That's because human nature craves validation. And when that validation is removed, people start to panic. They start to second guess their choices. A man who thought he had power over you will begin to feel powerless when you don't give him the expected emotional response. Number 5, the man who struggles the most, the better he is. That was my motivation. That's when the tables turn. But let me be clear, this isn't about playing games or manipulation. It's about reclaiming your power, because in that silence, something deeper is happening. You are giving yourself space to heal. You are shifting the focus from him to you, and that's what truly confuses him the most. When he sees you handling your emotions with strength instead of breaking down, that's what makes him question if he ever really knew you at all. Everything's different now. Ren Chiao with silver bullets. Although he's changed his mind, he's not as hurt. It's you. You have been crystallized in his heart. All you have to do now is release it. And here's the irony. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop reacting is the moment he starts paying attention. That's when the regret starts creeping in. Because he expected a fight. He expected a plea. But instead he's met with the undeniable truth that he lost something valuable. And that's a realization that lingers far longer than any argument ever could. When a man hurts you, your instinct might be to prove your worth to him, to show him what he's lost, to make him realize he made a mistake. But the truth is, the most powerful thing you can do is shift your focus entirely away from him. Instead of chasing his validation, invest that energy into yourself. This is what truly confuses him. He expects you to fall apart, to dwell on the pain, to keep looking back. But when you turn inward and elevate yourself, you send a message far louder than words ever could. Men often assume they are the center of your emotional world, especially after they've hurt you. They think their actions dictate your self-worth, that their presence or absence controls how you feel. But when you stop seeking answers from him and start investing in your own life, it shatters his illusion of power. Suddenly, you're not the woman begging for closure. You're the woman thriving without it. And that is what shakes him to his core. Imagine this. Instead of sending that long text, instead of replaying conversations in your head, instead of wondering why he did what he did, you start focusing on your growth. You dive into your passions, your goals, your health, your happiness. You make yourself the priority. And when he looks back, expecting to see you stuck in pain, he sees someone unrecognizable, someone stronger, someone glowing, someone who clearly doesn't need him. That realization, it's unsettling. Because here's what you have to understand. People don't regret losing something they believe they can always have. The moment a man sees that you're no longer emotionally available to him, that's when he starts questioning everything. He wonders why you're not trying to fix things. He wonders why you're not seeking his approval. And before he knows it, he starts wondering if he ever truly knew you at all. This isn't about pretending to be strong. It's about actually becoming strong. It's about shifting the energy from him back to yourself. About building a life so full that you don't have time to look back. And that's where the real power is. When a man realizes that the woman he took for granted is now a woman he can't reach anymore, that's when the regret begins. That's when the confusion sets in. Because nothing unsettles someone more than realizing they no longer have access to the person they thought would always be there. When a man hurts you, one of the most powerful things you can do is become unpredictable. He expects you to react in a certain way, whether it's with anger, sadness, or desperation. He expects you to reach out, to question him, to show that his actions still have control over your emotions. But when you do the opposite, when you remain calm, when you don't react the way he anticipated, you shift the entire dynamic. And that confusion, it lingers in his mind far longer than any argument or emotional outburst ever could. Men are wired to expect patterns. They get comfortable believing they know how you'll respond, especially after they've hurt you. If in the past you've always tried to fix things, to understand him, to hold on to the relationship, even when it was breaking, he assumes you'll do it again. But when you break that pattern, when you detach, when you move in silence instead of seeking closure, it throws him off balance. He starts questioning everything. Did he misjudge you? Did he lose something valuable? And most importantly, why aren't you reacting the way he thought you would? Think about this. If you confront him, cry to him, or beg him for answers, he knows exactly where you stand. He sees that he still has access to your emotions, your heart, your energy. But when you step back without explanation, when you focus on yourself instead of engaging in the drama, he has no idea what's going on in your mind. That uncertainty eats at him, because now he's the one wondering. He's the one left without answers. There's an old saying, silence is powerful, and it's true. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop justifying why you're pulling away, when you stop trying to make him see your worth, you force him to sit with the reality of what he's done. He doesn't get to know how you feel. He doesn't get to know if you're waiting for him or if you've already moved on. And that alone makes him start thinking about you more than ever. To solve the problem, you can't say, I got work to do. I need your help. I need to show back up. You sick. The beauty of being unpredictable is that it shifts the power dynamic. Suddenly, you're not reacting to him. He's reacting to you. He's checking to see if you've texted, if you're still thinking about him, if you're watching his social media. And when he sees that you've disappeared from his world, that's when regret starts creeping in. That's when he realizes that maybe, just maybe, he made a mistake. Because nothing is more unsettling than a woman who no longer responds the way she once did. When a man hurts you, the most unexpected and powerful thing you can do is elevate yourself. See, most men expect a reaction. They expect you to be broken, to be caught up in the pain, maybe even to chase after them for answers. They assume that their actions have control over your emotional state. But when you respond by leveling up, mentally, emotionally, even physically, it completely shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, he's no longer the one in control. You are. And that confusion, that regret, it starts creeping in before he even realizes what's happening. Growth is one of the most intimidating things to someone who took you for granted, because he left or he hurt you, believing that you would remain the same, that your world revolved around him, that your happiness was tied to his presence. But the moment he sees you thriving, the moment he notices that you've transformed into a stronger, wiser, more confident version of yourself, that's when the regret starts settling in. Not because he's changed, but because you have. And here's the thing, you're not doing it for him, you're doing it for you. You're stepping into the best version of yourself, not to prove a point, but because you deserve to. But the irony, the moment you stop waiting for him, the moment you stop seeking validation, the moment you stop hoping he'll come back, that's when he starts watching. That's when he starts thinking. Because the version of you that he thought would always be there for him, waiting, is gone. Men are naturally drawn to value, and when you become a high-value woman, when you set new standards, when you focus on your goals, when you surround yourself with better energy, he starts to realize what he lost. Because the truth is, people rarely regret leaving someone who stays stagnant, but they always regret losing someone who outgrows them. So, instead of seeking revenge, instead of trying to make him see your worth through words, show him through your actions. Level up in silence. Work on yourself. Heal. Build something that excites you. Because the moment you start glowing in your own power, the moment you truly move on, that's when he'll realize that losing you wasn't just a mistake, it was a loss. And by then, it'll be too late. Silence is a weapon most people don't know how to use. When a man hurts you, his biggest expectation is a reaction. He's waiting for the text, the argument, the emotional outburst. He's waiting to see how much power he still has over you, because the moment you react, he knows he still has control. Your anger, your pain, even your need for closure, it all confirms to him that he's still important in your world. But when you go silent, when you remove yourself from the equation entirely, it does something that no words ever could. It makes him wonder. It forces him to sit with the reality that you are no longer accessible, that the door he walked through so easily is now closed. And that confusion, that's what starts the shift. Because silence forces a man to face his own actions without your emotions clouding the picture. He doesn't get to justify, argue, or manipulate the situation when there's nothing coming from your side. See, most people assume that silence is weakness, that it means you have nothing to say, that you're letting them win. But in reality, silence is the loudest response you can give. It's the moment where he realizes that you've stopped needing his explanations, his excuses, his validation. And that's what scares him the most, because now he's the one left with unanswered questions. He's the one wondering what you're thinking, what you're doing, and worst of all, who you're doing it with. And let's be real, no man truly expects a woman to detach without warning. That's why so many keep coming back, checking in, sending random texts just to see if there's still an open door. They don't come back because they've suddenly realized your worth. They come back because they want to know if you still care, if they still have access, if they can still step back into your life as easily as before. But when you stay silent, when you continue moving forward, when you refuse to let his actions pull you back into old cycles, that's when real power shifts. Because now he's no longer in control of the narrative. He's no longer dictating how you feel, how you move, or how you heal. And that's when he starts feeling the loss. The beauty of silence is that it creates space for you to heal, to grow, to evolve without interference. It forces you to stop seeking closure from someone who was never going to give it to you in the first place. It teaches you that the real power isn't in proving a point, it's in knowing you don't need to. And when he finally realizes what he lost, when the silence becomes too loud for him to ignore, that's when he'll regret everything. At the end of the movie, John finds out that, spoiler alert, Michelle Weston's died in an accident as she was growing up in Beach Through Happy, when the police expose that one of them is Mindy. But by then, you'll be too far gone to care. There's a moment after a man hurts you when he expects you to break. He expects the anger, the tears, the long messages trying to make sense of it all. And the truth is, most women give him exactly that. They feed into the cycle, trying to explain, trying to be understood, trying to get some kind of resolution. But here's the thing, he already knows what he did. He already knows how it made you feel. And if he truly cared, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. So, instead of playing into his expectations, instead of reacting the way he assumes you will, you do something different. You keep living, you keep glowing, you keep moving forward as if his actions had no real impact on your energy. Now, I'm not saying you don't feel anything. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. But what I am saying is that you don't let him see that pain, because the moment you show that he broke something in you, you give him the validation that he still matters in your world. And here's where it gets interesting. When a man realizes that his absence didn't shake you, that his words or actions didn't knock you off balance, he starts questioning everything. He starts wondering, was I not as important as I thought? Did she not love me the way I assumed? Was she already moving on before I even left? And that's when the confusion sets in, because men are wired to believe that they hold emotional power in relationships, that they decide when things end, when things restart, and how a woman will react. But when you refuse to give him that reaction, when you continue thriving, laughing, and showing up for yourself in ways he never expected, you shatter his illusion. You make him realize that he was not the center of your world. And that is a reality most men are not ready to face, because deep down they want to believe that they are unforgettable, that their presence in your life was irreplaceable. But when you move as if he was just a chapter and not the entire story, he starts feeling the loss in a way he never anticipated. It's in the moments when he sees you glowing, happy, unbothered. That's when regret starts creeping in. That's when he starts replaying everything in his mind, trying to figure out where he lost control. Because the greatest revenge is not proving him wrong. It's showing him that you never needed him to be right. That's where your power is. That's where you win. When a man hurts you, his mind is wired to expect one of two reactions, anger or sadness. He expects you to lash out, to beg for an explanation, or to crumble under the weight of what he did. And when you do exactly what he expects, it confirms everything he assumed about you. He thinks she's still emotionally invested. She still cares. She's still reacting to me. And in that moment, he still holds the power. But if you want to truly confuse him, if you want to shake him at his core, you have to do something unexpected. You have to detach. Not in a way that's forced, not in a way that's meant to be revengeful, but in a way that shows him that his actions do not dictate your worth, your peace, or your future. Because when a man realizes that his absence hasn't created chaos in your life, it forces him to question everything. See, most men move through relationships thinking they are the prize, the irreplaceable piece of the puzzle. And when they leave or when they hurt you, they assume that their presence will be missed so deeply that you'll struggle to function without them. That's why so many men are confident when they walk away. They think you'll be there waiting, that you'll eventually reach out, that you'll try to fix things. But the moment you do the opposite, the moment you stay silent, you keep moving, you keep growing, he starts feeling something he never expected. Doubt. Doubt that he ever really had you in the way he assumed. Doubt that he made the right decision. Doubt that he was ever as valuable in your life as he thought he was. And this doubt is powerful because it shifts the dynamic. Now, instead of you chasing closure, instead of you trying to understand what went wrong, he's the one left wondering. He's the one overanalyzing. He's the one replaying the situation in his mind, realizing that he may have underestimated you. His prophetic light, his comments, it redefines the relationship. This lets you know that the relationship you had with him is not the same relationship he has with you. And here's what happens next. He starts watching. He starts paying attention to how you carry yourself, to how you navigate life without him. He looks for signs that you're suffering, that you're struggling without his presence. And when he doesn't see it, when he sees you smiling, thriving, elevating, that's when the regret kicks in. That's when he starts feeling the weight of what he lost. Because now it's not just about you moving on. It's about the fact that he no longer has access to you. He no longer has influence over your emotions. He no longer holds a space in your world. That's the real loss. That's the moment he realizes that by hurting you, he didn't break you, he freed you. And nothing confuses a man more than seeing a woman who was supposed to be devastated walking around like she's never been happier. That's when he knows he made the wrong move. When a man hurts you, the natural reaction is to either seek revenge or demand closure. You want answers. You want him to feel the same pain he inflicted on you. You want justice in some form, even if that justice is just making sure he understands what he's done. But the most powerful response, the one that confuses him the most, is choosing peace over reaction. Not because you're weak, not because you don't care, but because your energy is too valuable to be wasted on someone who treated you like an option. See, men expect chaos when they hurt you. They expect emotional outbursts, long paragraphs, and endless conversations about what went wrong. And when they get that, they feel validated. Because deep down, as long as you're reacting, they still hold space in your mind. They know they still have influence over your emotions. And in their own twisted way, that gives them a sense of control. But when you choose peace, when you walk away without looking back, that shakes them. That leaves them wondering. Because now, instead of controlling the narrative, they're left in uncertainty. And uncertainty is the one thing that truly bothers a man who thought he had you figured out. He starts to wonder, was she even that invested in me? Did I even matter? How is she just okay? That's when the regret starts creeping in, because he realizes he miscalculated. He assumed you'd be sitting there, waiting for an explanation, for an apology, for some kind of reconciliation. But instead, you chose yourself. You chose peace, and that is the greatest confusion you can create. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying that choosing peace means you won't feel the hurt. But what I am saying is that peace is a decision. It's the conscious choice to not let someone else's actions dictate your well-being. It's the decision to walk away with your dignity intact, knowing that you don't have to prove your worth to someone who failed to recognize it in the first place. Because here's the truth, a man who truly values you will never put you in a position where you have to question your worth. And when he sees that his actions didn't break you, that they didn't push you into bitterness or resentment, but instead made you even more grounded, even more self-assured, that's when he truly feels the weight of what he's lost. Because he expected to hurt you. He did not expect to empower you. When a man hurts you, the urge to react is natural. You want to show him that what he did isn't acceptable, that it hurt, and that it matters. You want him to know the impact of his actions, to understand how deep the pain goes. But here's where many women get trapped. They assume that reacting emotionally, throwing a fit or demanding answers will make the man realize his mistake and regret his actions. But what they don't realize is that this only reinforces his control over the situation. He gets to dictate the terms. He gets to decide how you feel and how you respond. And that, in a way, puts him in the driver's seat. So what happens when you do the opposite, when you don't react at all, when you instead give him silence, distance, and space to truly reflect on his actions? This is where the power shifts. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. It communicates that you are no longer emotionally dependent on him, that you are no longer investing your energy in something that doesn't serve you. And when you take that step back, you begin to regain control over your emotions, your life, and your well-being. A man who has hurt you expects that if he can just explain himself, if he can just show you that he is sorry, that things can go back to normal. But when you withdraw your energy and stop chasing that validation or explanation, he begins to feel the weight of his actions. He begins to feel that sense of loss and regret. Because as much as some men may say they don't care or that they don't need validation, the truth is every man has a desire for significance, for respect, and for admiration. And when he realizes he has lost all of those things from you, that's when the confusion starts. He starts wondering if he truly lost something valuable. He begins questioning whether he ever mattered to you the way he thought he did. And that's the shift you need to create. You need to show him that your value isn't tied to his approval or validation. When you stop seeking his reaction and start valuing yourself instead, that's when he starts wondering whether he made a huge mistake. It's that feeling of wondering if he was the one who got it. And trust me, that is a powerful emotion that he'll carry with him long after. The silence you give is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of indifference. It's a sign of strength, of self-respect. It's the realization that you have nothing to prove to him or anyone else. You know your worth, and you're no longer allowing anyone to treat you less than you deserve. And when you do this, you remove all the drama, all the noise, and you make him confront his own emotions without any external distractions. This doesn't mean you'll never have to address what happened. It doesn't mean you won't have a conversation later on, but what it does mean is that you're not giving him the power to dictate your emotions in the moment. You're giving him space to reflect on his actions. And in doing so, you're allowing him to come to the realization on his own that what he did was wrong. You're showing him that you won't settle for less than what you deserve. And that, my friends, is the true essence of power. In the end, this silence, this decision to withdraw is not about punishment. It's about protecting your peace, your dignity, and your self-worth. It's about setting boundaries that remind him and anyone else who enters your life that you are not a person to be taken for granted. And when you do this, it forces him to confront the reality of what he's lost, you. When a man hurts you, the temptation is to seek closure, to demand an explanation, or to get answers. You want to understand why it happened, what led him to treat you in a way that caused pain, and why he made the choices he did. The desire for closure is powerful, but it's often the wrong path to healing. Here's the thing. Closure, as we understand it, rarely comes from the other person. It doesn't always come from the apology or the explanation. Sometimes, closure is something that you have to give yourself. You have to take control of your own healing. And when you do that, you take back the power that was lost in the hurt. One of the most important things to recognize in these situations is that seeking closure from him doesn't necessarily resolve the pain. You're giving him a power he may not deserve, the power to control your emotions and your sense of closure. When you seek validation from someone who has hurt you, you risk putting yourself back in a vulnerable position. It's like handing the reins back to him, giving him the chance to control the narrative. And if he chooses not to offer you the answers you want, you might feel rejected, misunderstood, or worse, unworthy of the closure you deserve. This is not a healthy way to approach healing. Instead, what if you took a different approach? What if you stopped waiting for him to give you what you feel you need to move on? What if, instead of asking for answers, you gave yourself the freedom to move forward? Regardless of whether or not you get the explanation you seek. The truth is, closure is something that you can give to yourself. It's something you can find within, not from an external source. It comes from choosing to let go of the need to know every single detail, to understand every nuance, and to get every apology. When you decide that you no longer need him to validate your feelings, you begin to heal. You begin to step into a place of strength where you can look forward, not back. You stop looking for the missing pieces and instead accept that the puzzle is complete without them. You must understand that not everything is meant to be understood. Some things, some people, and some situations simply do not make sense, and that's okay. We often think that if we just get the full story, we'll feel better. We think that if we understand why he hurt us, it will somehow lessen the pain. But the truth is, the pain doesn't go away with answers. It goes away when you decide to release the need for those answers. The pain goes away when you take the reins of your own healing, when you decide to no longer be at the mercy of someone else's actions, and when you reclaim your own sense of peace. Healing comes from within. It comes from recognizing your own strength and your own worth, even when someone else has tried to make you question it. You are not defined by how someone treats you. You are defined by how you choose to respond, by the decisions you make moving forward. If you let his actions determine your sense of worth, you're letting him have control over your emotional life. But when you take responsibility for your own healing, when you give yourself the closure you need, you begin to reclaim control. So how do you do that? How do you give yourself the closure you need? It starts with forgiveness, not for him, but for you. You forgive yourself for staying longer than you should have, for letting yourself be hurt, and for waiting for someone else to fix it. Forgiveness doesn't mean that what he did was okay. It means that you are choosing to move forward, and you are choosing to release the hold that pain has on you. It means that you are letting go of the expectation that he will somehow fix it, and instead, you're fixing it for yourself. Once you let go of the need for closure from him, you create the space for your own growth. You create the space for healing. You stop waiting for answers and start creating your own. You stop seeking validation from someone who doesn't value you, and you start valuing yourself. When you choose to heal on your own terms, you begin to change the narrative. You stop being defined by the hurt and start being defined by your resilience, your strength, and your ability to move on. At the end of the day, closure is not something that can be given to you. It's something you have to take for yourself, something you have to claim for yourself. And when you do, you set yourself free. You stop allowing his actions to control your emotions and your future. You stop giving him the power to dictate how you feel, and instead, you take that power back. That is when true healing begins. That is when you truly move forward. You don't need his permission to heal. You don't need his explanation to move on. You just need to decide that you're worth more than the pain he caused, and that you are worthy of peace, love, and happiness on your own terms.